Hello and welcome, I'm Tim and this is TimBatSea. And as you can see, it's a beautiful day here on Long Island Sound. We are currently taking a barge that we left New Haven with, and we are bringing it over. I believe it's full of ethanol, if I remember. This is from a long time ago. Not a long time ago, but I'm an old man and I forget things. I'm thinking this is like a month or two ago. Anyway, we brought a load from New York up to New Haven, gave them a whole bunch, and then we're bringing some over just about 20 miles west of New Haven would be Bridgeport. And we had been waiting out here for our berth to open up, and as you can see coming into the picture right now, there is the tug and barge, the unit that has just left our dock. So we are now going to be freed up to go into our dock, and that guy's coming out of the channel, and we're sitting here waiting to go in. If I switch over here, I believe I can switch over and see if I figure this out. Yeah, here we go. If I switch over here, we can go and see our chart plotter, and it's not the greatest representation. This is like the second time I've tried this. So the problem is that the chart plotter and the camera are in the lower house. Nobody's down there, so we can't really zoom in and zoom out with the chart plotter. So it is what it is. We're getting better all the time. But anyway, you can see that there is an AIS target just on our starboard side or to the right of us. We are the green vessel that's moving up the screen. Hey, I just want to stop for a second and thank the good people at BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. You might think that that's kind of funny that I'm talking about this, but I got to tell you, therapy is kind of a cool thing, and I know this firsthand. Your old buddy Tim wasn't always the guy that you see here now and the guy that you've gotten to know over the years. Years ago, I was in a less than awesome marriage, and after, back then we'd have to go through the yellow pages to find a therapist, and it took us many, like over 10 different therapists before we found one that worked for us. And in my particular case, I remember the therapist wanting to talk to me, and I was thinking how odd that was, because obviously I wasn't the one with the problem. Well, it turns out that the therapist explained to me that I was either going to have to develop or find the tools to continue on in the marriage that I was in, or find the tools or develop the strength to move on and with my life without that person in my life. And that was something that profoundly changed me, and it really helped me out and definitely changed the way I think about therapy. And another thing that I gained from all this was that life is awesome. It's even better when you're happy. And we have a lot to be grateful for in this time and age. There's a lot to be stressed out about with the stuff in the news from I don't even have to tell you. You guys can figure it all out. From almost every angle, we have all kinds of reasons to be upset and that sort of stuff. And I can tell you that life is a much happier existence when you are happy. And for most of us, me included, the road to happiness sometimes is much easier found with the help of a therapist. And it's easier today than it ever has been. You guys have seen BetterHelp in 1,000 other videos out there. They have a great reputation. They have a professional therapists that will help you, and you can do it on your own schedule and your own time, and they do it through messaging and through phone calls and through video calls, all that sort of stuff. It's pretty cool how they do all that. And if that's something that you're interested in, we'll put a link in below, and there should be something at the bottom of the screen if I figure this out. And you can click on that, and I think they're going to give you a nice little discount to try it out. But anyway, get on with your life and live every day happier, better. It's better with therapy. And now back to the show. And the little AIS target that's to the right of us, that is the assist tug that helped the tug and barge unit move out of the dock that we're going to. So that's the guy that's moving there. You can see the channel as he's coming straight out of the channel. It's a series of buoys that go in and then a breakwater. And so Luke is going to have to go up there and get squared up with the channel and then go into the channel. And that's what we're going to do. So let me switch back to the other screen so you can see that. There we go. Now you can see there's the tug and barge coming by. Now you would think that they're in push gear, but I actually believe these guys are an ATB. An ATB is a different type of tug and barge unit. It's called a articulated tug and barge. So instead of having push gear like we have, they actually have these large, super huge, heavy-duty pins in the bow. And they go into a notch that perfectly fits their bow, and then they push these pins out that are received into the barge, and it articulates fore and aft, but not side to side. So in other words, as the barge goes through swells or whatever, the stern of the tug can lift up and articulate right where those pins are in the bow. And if the barge and the tug roll side to side, they move together. This is a wonderful thing, and it works really, really well. When we're out getting our butts kicked, getting beat up really bad, those guys are laughing at us. For a long time, we thought that the ATBs would be the future of the industry, and that still may be the case. They're able to get some ATBs that are bigger than ships and not have the manning requirements that a ship has. They can retract the pins and then go off and leave the barge. The problem is they're pretty much married to their own barge. That's all they can do. They can't go and pin up with another barge, even if it's of the same class. They kind of they're pretty particular. They like their barges, and barges like their tugs, and that's how it's got to be. But they can go off and run over and get fuel, do a crew change, do whatever they need to do, maybe help somebody with an assist, although they're usually not that good for an assist because the pins, you don't want them to interfere with anybody. But anyway, you can see Luke is rounding up here. There's a smokestack off there in the distance, and I believe, if I remember correctly, there's what they call a trash-to-energy plant there in Bridgeport, which will convert household trash, and they get it super hot and burn it very clean, and the heat produces steam, and they produce electricity that way. A little bit further to the right, you're going to see some more stuff of a coal plant, another power plant there. And I don't think they've been doing anything with that coal plant lately, but years ago, when the coal restrictions weren't there, they used to have coal running in and out of there all the time. But I think that they're still using the plant, but probably burning natural gas there. I'm not sure. But I'm sure somebody in the comments will straighten us out about that. But anyway, so just to give you a reference, New York City would be off to our left. Bridgeport is what's coming into frame there, just forward of us. New Haven would be to our right, and in back of us would be Long Island. And, of course, this is part of Long Island Sound. So we're coming up here. I'm going to switch back to the... let me switch back to the chart plotter for you. There we go. You can see... Oh, actually, you know what? Looking at our track line, I think, because this is so long ago, I did this wrong. I think we originally were supposed to go to New Haven first, but it looks like, no, I remember this now. I was supposed to do this on my watch, but we came up here and we got orders because the berth wasn't empty yet. So I'm looking at the track line. You can see where I handed over to Luke. Luke went, and he just kind of anchored up there and waited for the guy to get out of there, and then he heaved up the anchor, and now he's running in there now. And so that's what he's doing. So anyway, you can see that he is slowly getting in. That blue line right there kind of represents the the channel, and he'll be getting in there. If you wonder why we don't have a route, it's because, like I say, the camera is on a chart plotter that we're not using. And incidentally, had a couple controversial videos in the past about when I said that we had to remove all of our paper charts from the tugs, and that we are now electronic. One of the things that to be able to do that, you have to have a minimum of 2 independent charting systems that aren't connected. And so that's one of the problems that I'm having right now, is that the charting system that we're using in the upper house, where I'm zooming in and zooming out, and we have the information like the route and all that sort of stuff, that's not being transferred down here, because if that computer blew up or something happened like that, we'd have a fully independent system down here. And unfortunately, because nobody's down here, and because we're navigating the tug, we're not able to be down here and zoom in on the channel. But anyway, you can see where the channel comes in like that. So let me go back, and I will put you back to us coming in. Luke's getting squared up on the ranges there. And actually, I don't even know if this one has a range, but he's getting squared up there anyway. Nice day like this, it's really easy to get in there, and you can look at zoom in on your chart plotter and see if there's any tide pushing you from right to left. But as you guys all know, Luke is one of the best there is, and he has no problem at all. And we're just enjoying the beautiful weather, steaming in here. And if I go back to the chart plotter again, we're making 6.9 knots. So he's moving right in there. He's not afraid. He's bringing her right in. Not a problem at all. He's obviously made a bunch of security calls letting people know his intentions. There's ferries that run in and out here all the time, and they're really cool. The guys on the ferries, they're used to the tugs coming in and out of here all the time, and they're really good. They come up on the radio right away, and they know the deal, so they're not an issue. But we'd hate to get here and then find somebody, a recreational boat that had to be in the middle of the channel for reasons unknown to us, and so Luke has undoubtedly made security calls on channel 13 and on channel 16, and we're moving along. So we were talking earlier about ATBs, and I was saying how ATBs may be the future. For a long time we thought all the wire boats were going to go away. That didn't happen, and there's some reason for that. One is that there's some utility that a wire boat or a boat like ours, a conventional tug, will have that an ATB will never have, and that's that we can drop this barge off, go over and get another barge and go with it. And that, depending on the size and the type of work you do, if you're just moving a large amount of product from one terminal to another terminal, then an ATB is a perfect fit for that. But if you're kind of doing these spot things where you run a load for this company, and then you run a load for that company, and you do this and you do that, you do clean oil one day, you do black oil the next day, and you do bunkers the next day, and then, telephone, hang on a second. And we're back. So, anyway, I was trying to say, when you have a conventional tug that isn't married to one specific barge, you get a lot more utility out of it. You can do things like, assist work. People say, well, you can do assist work with ATBs. The problem is most of them have the big pin system, and you can't really get that. You don't want to get that have knuckles or knees where the pins come out, and that would put a hole in the barge. So that's something that they usually don't do. So anyway, there's a real lot of utility for having a conventional tug that you can swap out barges and do different things and make up on the hip and in push gear, and when the weather gets bad, put it on the wire. The downside is that when it's really rough out there, all of us on the wire boats that are getting beaten up really badly look over at those guys on the pin boats, and we're like, oh man, maybe I made a bad career decision, because those guys seem to be a lot more comfortable than we are, because obviously they're not moving with the tug bouncing around like a cork in a bottle, but they're moving with how the barge moves. Obviously, they articulate in one direction, but it's the side-to-side action in the thing. They actually call it, what do they call it? It's a rapid deceleration or whatever. Apparently, the speeding up of being pushed up a wave isn't the problem, or the speeding up of falling down on a wave. It's when you decelerate that messes up the fluid in your ear that makes you feel not real super happy about being out here. Anyway, that's that. So we're going in, we're pushing away. As we get closer here, when I was talking about the chart plotter being down below in the lower wheelhouse, normally you would zoom in and it would get on a different chart so you could have more detail in the chart. The one we're looking at doesn't look a whole lot like the one. I mean, obviously the shape, the outline of the land and stuff like that is all the same, but we've zoomed in probably on our chart, and you can see water depths and buoy numbers and all that sort of stuff that you'd normally see on a normal chart. And unfortunately, there's no one that's zooming in down below. So what I'm going to do eventually is, when we get in there, you're just going to be in that big blue area, because, like I said, it's not zoomed in. And so what I've done with the chart is that you'll see I've replaced in a little bit here in the future, you'll see I've replaced the chart plotter window with our speed, so you can see how fast we are approaching the dock and that sort of stuff. But anyway, we're coming up to the next set of buoys here. Once again, we've talked about this before, but in North America, we use the buoyage system B, or Bravo. That's the red right return. There are many people over here that seem to think that that's the way it is around the world, and it's really that only in North America. Most of the world is all buoyage system A, which would be exactly the opposite of what we have. And if you think that's confusing, I would agree with you. I'm not really sure why we couldn't. We've agreed on so many other maritime rules and stuff like that. I don't really understand why we couldn't agree on this one either. Anyway, we come through, and as you can see, when we're coming like this, you can see if the tide is pushing us one way or the other. So the tide really won't be flowing in or out at this moment. It's still flowing in or out of Long Island Sound. So there'd be pressure pushing us left to right or right to left. So if the tide was ebbing, it would be going from left to right. And if it was flooding, it would be going from right to left, because we are northbound right now. And then you'll see there's some jetties here, and it kind of shows that on the chart down below a little bit better. Once we get in the jetties, then that the effects of the tide going in and out of Long Island Sound will have been mitigated, and it will just be the tide pushing us in or pulling us, pushing against us as we're entering, or pushing us into the harbor. Fun fact, when years ago, 20 years ago, I was working for another company, and we used to bring we'd assist the banana boats every Tuesday in here. I may have told you this before. I've separated these voiceovers by about 3 weeks now, so I probably should have went back and listened to what I said. But anyway, when after I had been steering for a little while and feeling really confident, and I was pretty happy about that, I would come over here, and there was one pilot in particular that really used to like to bring these banana ships in. And back then, those were the Paquita ships, and they had a real hard rake on the bow and a real hard rake on the stern. So you really have to land right in the middle of them. And there was one pilot that used to like to come in here really, really fast. And once you get in here, there isn't a lot of places to slow down or anything like that. It's like you're in here and you're going right to the dock. Their dock is straight ahead of us right now. So I remember him saying, yeah, get in there and get a line. And he was doing like 9 knots, and we usually don't even approach a ship until it's doing like 7. And it happens because you have this Venturi effect. When the two hulls come together, the water speeds up between the two hulls, and it sucks you over. And, I was doing good. And then I wasn't doing good anymore. I got sucked right in underneath the rake of the stern there, and bent all the handrails over on the O1 deck on the starboard side by the stack. And I felt so bad about that. But the company was cool. It wasn't a big deal. Of course, it does nothing to the ship because those ships are so tough. But I always think about that when I come in here. I say, oh, God, that was awful. And the worst part was the company that I was working for didn't fix the handrails for like a year. So for a year, I had to look at those handrails being bent over and remembered the horrible mistake that I had made. And if you say, well, what would be the right thing to do? I probably shouldn't have landed on the ship then. Or if I should have went way high on the ship and landed only on the flat, so that when I got sucked in, I'd just be flat. I wouldn't be sucked in underneath the rake. And that would have been more better, as the Puerto Ricans would say. But I think there's a lot to this job that you can read about and you can study, but there's a vast, in my life anyway, the most of the learning I've gotten is by doing. And the trick is, with all the sea stories and all the people that you look up to and you hear them talking about this and hear them talking about that, if you can learn from somebody else's mistakes, then you don't have to go through the whole thing and do it yourself. But fortunately, I'm not always that bright, so sometimes I have to do stuff. So you see this red buoy? So now we're inside the jetties, and this red buoy right here on the right-hand side, there's like no water on the other side of that. There's like 2 foot of water on the other side of that at low tide. But you can see I've switched the chart plotter screen down. Luke is still hauling here. He's doing 7.9, and this was back when we...
Paquita.
Oh,
Sabbatical calling over.
Hang on a second. Radio's pretty loud over here. Anyway, so Luke is flying in here. This was when we were using our tug. Right now, presently, we are on a loaner tug, and that's because our tug is having its upper end rebuilt. They do that on time. And anyway, our tug stops really well, and this isn't a fully loaded barge. Remember, we dumped half the load in New Haven, and we're bringing the other half of the load of ethanol over here to Bridgeport. So Luke is coming in here. He's totally confident he'll be able to put this thing in reverse and get this thing stopped. But our bridge is coming. Our dock is coming into frame there on the right-hand side, up on the right-hand corner. This little guy coming out over here. He's no problem. You can see the speed bleeding down now to 6.6 knots. And another buoy coming up here. And like I say, as long as we stay in the channel, we're good. I think after this buoy, if I'm correct here, after this buoy, there's a cut. So in other words, he could cut around this buoy and come 90 degrees to the east, to the right, and he'd have water. And there's a big mooring over there that some of the stone boats use. When we used to do, like I say, when the banana contracts used to have all the bananas come in here, now they all go down to Wilmington, Delaware. But before they all used to come here, the company I worked for was based out of New Haven, and they'd always need assist tugs. So we'd run over here and assist somebody, and if we had a tug and barge coming to this oil dock and needed an assist, instead of going all the way back to New Haven, we'd run over to that mooring and throw a line up on a stone barge or on the mooring itself, and that was always kind of fun. Bridgeport has been known for a long time as kind of being a rough, tough, blue-collar, not real fancy town, and I think they've worked really hard to kind of change that. I don't know how successful they've been at it, but Bridgeport, I think today, if you've been to Bridgeport 20 years ago, you might like it a lot better today than you did 20 years ago. Let's just say that. down to 5.5 knots, and we're still going. Everything's looking good. Looks like we got a deckhand out on deck. Looks like he's checking comms, making sure everything's cool. Everything's going along just fine. And then we're just moving along here. On the left-hand side here, around that little lighthouse there, will be the power plant. Like I say, for a long time there, a whole bunch of coal barges used to come in and out of there all the time. And I don't believe they burn coal there anymore, but I think it's still an active power plant. A little further down, they have a trash-to-energy plant, but that's a different one. That's not the same one as here. And then a little bit further around the corner here, after the coal plant or the power plant there's the ferry docks. Those are the people who take the Port Jeff ferry from Bridgeport over to Port Jeff, Long Island, Port Jefferson. A little further up than that is the Amtrak station. Anyone who's ridden Amtrak will let you go through Bridgeport, and that's right where it goes. It goes right over. It's like kind of suspended over the water. The station is. It's kind of interesting. The old Director Shipyard is that big building up there in the upper left-hand corner. I've heard rumors. I don't know if this is true or not. If anybody's still watching this video and knows, let me know in the comments. But I've heard that the Director might have sold that yard. But Director is a company that builds all kinds of stuff, and they do some wonderful work. But I don't know if they're doing that anymore. They might have sold it to a yacht company. I'm not sure of that. But if you know anything about that, let me know. So, now what Luke is doing is he's bled that 7-8 knots down to 3.5 right now. And he needs to get up, and he's got the speed bled off enough. He needs to go up and make that hard right-hand turn. But if he does it now, he'll have to walk his way up to the dock. So it's easier to kind of go straight to close the distance between the shore and then do the right-hand turn and then drive more straight with a more shallow angle to the dock. So I think that's what he's doing right now. You could see the handrail moving back and forth. That's probably because he's doing a twin screw right now. So probably a little bit of cavitation there. Down to 3.1 knots. Everything's looking good. And I think that's really our dock right up there. It just came into view on the right-hand corner. The other thing straight ahead of us is a little teeny marina that the local fishermen use. Yeah, that's our dock up there. Now, something that had changed for me that was odd, I'd always seen a swing bridge that had been out of commission for my entire career coming in and out of here. And it would be right about where the corner of the right-hand corner of your view right now. That's where that swing bridge would be, and it would go over to, I think they call it Paradise Island or Paradise Beach or something like that. And apparently it was a big vacation thing, and I had always heard that there was a fire on the bridge, and then they got it open so that marine traffic could go back and forth, but they never bothered fixing it. So we came in here, and I was like, where's the bridge? So I guess I ended up taking the bridge down for 20-some years. The defunct bridge had just been stuck in the open position the whole time, and I came around and said, oh, look at that. It's completely gone now. Okay, so there's our dock straight ahead. Luke's got us down to 2.6 knots. Beautiful. Everything's looking good. He's moving along. He's going to keep that momentum going. Remember, just because he has the bow pointed that way, he still is going to have some... We're sliding from right to left. So he's still going to be closing the distance just because of our momentum. Even though he's pointed in the right direction, he's still sliding that way a little bit all the time. 2.3 knots. And now at this point, we want to go as slow as we need to go so that we don't tear anything up. But the problem is the slower you go, the less steerage you have. So there's a temptation to want to use more throttle, because the more throttle you use, the more water goes by the rudders and the more steerage you have. But, I've said this a million times, but energy in means you got to get the energy out somewhere. And so if he gets going faster than he's going now, he's going to have to try to bleed that energy off by backing really hard, and he won't have any steerage when he does that. So you can see he's coming in at a pretty shallow angle here, which is kind of nice. Aiming right for the dock. Everything's looking good. You can see where that red buoy is and that little spit of sand. That's kind of where that bridge used to go over to that silver tank. That's all gone now. How nice is that? Well, I imagine if I lived over on Paradise Island, I probably would think that's not real. Well, I suppose it doesn't really matter. If you have a bridge that doesn't work, it's probably the same as a bridge that's not there, right? Maybe even better if it's not there, where you don't have obstacles when you run your boat over to the island. So we're just getting closer and closer. You can see some of the clam and oyster boats there on the left-hand side in that marina. They do an interesting type of shell fishing here in Connecticut that I know nothing about other than what I've just talked to people about, meaning it was not the kind of fishing I've ever done. But apparently they lease grounds. They have a lease, and they lease it from the state. So in other words, I'll have my area and I'll grow they seed the bed with the baby oysters, and then they let them grow, and then they dig them up. And I think they do the same with clams as well, too. But it's interesting to me that, you usually think nobody really owns the water. But I don't know, they got it figured out somehow. They make it work. Down to 2 knots. Everything's looking good. And if you're getting bored and you're saying, why doesn't he just drive right up there? Well, remember that the barge, I think this barge is like 366. And then we're another 100 feet. And so it's a ways up there, and even though it's only got a half load on it, it's still a lot of kinetic energy. And if he opens the bow up, in other words, if he were to come right, did a right-hand twist to make that bow go to the right, he would be so far off the dock he wouldn't be able to move laterally. So the idea is that he shortens the distance between us and the dock right now at this angle. And then when he gets it really short, then at the last minute he'll pull the bow out and then slide up and hopefully slide right into place. Because if you get stalled out even 10, 15 feet off the dock, it's very difficult to move a loaded big barge like this sideways, that lateral movement. And when that happens, we usually will put the bow over or we'll put the stern over, depending on the tide, whichever one will help us or be the most effective, and then get a line out. And then once we have the line, then we'll twist against the line and shorten it up the other way. But what he's doing, so as he's getting closer, he was probably aiming for the first cluster there on the left-hand side, and as he got closer, because he doesn't want to hit that, and remember, he can't pull the bow out. Like if you were driving a car, you would just turn the wheel and the front would turn out. That doesn't happen. What happens with us? And when he pushes the rudder over, the bow stays there and the stern moves over. So if he's 20 feet off and he moves the stern over, the bow is still going to be 20 feet off, if not even maybe 15 by that time. And so so what he does is he starts to move the line where he originally was probably aiming for that first left, first cluster there on the left. Then he probably aimed for the middle of the manifold. Then he aimed for the last cluster all the way up. And now he's probably just like, okay, cool, I've got lateral movement. In other words, because he's come right, he's brought the bow out, and you can tell that because the bow isn't aiming towards the dock anymore, and he's doing 1.2 knots, so he's just coasting right now. He's letting our inertia bring us over. In other words, if we were looking at our predictor line, I would guess that our predictor line would not be pointing straight ahead, but would be probably pointing right for the manifold or the middle of the dock. And that means that we are making headway, but we're sliding sideways all the time, and that's closing up. So he's doing a textbook job right here, right now. As we get in here, you can see the pads, the wood that he's going to lay up against. And so as he does that, he starts to make sure that he gets in contact with the right part of the barge. Remember that the bow has a rake on it, the stern does too. And so you want to land on those fenders on the flat parts. So he's doing all that. You can see he's shortening everything up. He may be, I'm not watching this, but he may be doing once again, it's not really a walk. I call it more of a lean, because you can't really walk, a big barge like this that's got a lot of product on it. So what he'll do is he'll have his rudder probably 10 to 20 degrees off to starboard. And then he'll come ahead with his starboard engine and back with his port engine. And you would think that doing that, it would want to turn to, rotate us counterclockwise. But because the rudder is off at the angle to the right, it actually pushes the stern over. And if you balance it, you start squeezing it over. When you're light or you're doing a light barge, you can walk it sideways when everything works well and you have a good tug that can do that. That's great. When it's loaded like this, it really takes a lot of skill to balance that out. And as you can see, Luke is doing a fantastic job. So again, we want to get over there. And even as slow as we're going, remember that we're talking, there's got to be well over 1 million gallons of product on here. And the product probably weighs over 7 pounds per gallon. And I think the barge weighs 2,600 tons light, I think. Something like that. I don't know. But anyway, what I'm trying to tell you is that even if you just kiss the dock, there's so much energy in there that the dock has to absorb that you have to come in here really, really slowly or things go really bad quickly. But Luke's doing a fantastic job. And one of the hardest parts of the job is having the patience and waiting it all out. So while he's doing this, he's probably wanting to get the stern over, but not too concerned about it. They're probably more concerned about getting a bow line up there in the bow. Once he gets that bow line over there, that will act as this assist tug. So in other words, he can drive into that line. By driving into that line up in the bow, because of the geometry involved, it will pull the bow from right to left. And you can see that happening right now. And the reason why I'm seeing how I know that's happening is I'm looking at the tower, the flag pole there at the end of the barge, and you can see it going from right to left on the line of the shore. We call that ranging that. So that's going over that way, and we know that that's working out well for him. So once he has that line there, that line's going to act as the assist tug. He can start putting his rudder harder to starboard and coming ahead on probably one engine, and because you have to be very careful, just one end, it's not the power of one engine that will snap the line. It's all that energy that's stored in the barge trying to stop the line is trying to stop the barge that's got all that weight in there. So you have to be very careful. You have to let get it just about stopped, let the line take up the energy in the barge, and then once it's set, put one engine in gear and leave it in gear so that it has the constant same amount of pressure on the line. Put your rudder not hard to right, but over to starboard a little bit, and if it's not moving, put it a little bit more. If you put it too much, what happens is the stern starts moving over from right to left, and then once it hits, it'll bring the bow out, and that really puts a lot of force on the line up there because it's kind of acting like a seesaw, or like a slingshot. That's what I'm trying to say. And we'll put a lot of right rudder on there to get it moving, and as it moves, we start bringing the rudder back until it's almost neutral. And if it's still coming in, we'll even put it to the left a little bit to slow it down, just so we don't get that slingshot effect and break the line. But that's about it. This is a good example of Luke doing a fantastic job. And if you wonder why I always say Luke does a fantastic job, it's because not only does he do it, but I hope to retire soon. And one of the things that really makes me feel good is when I see mariners like Luke, who, when I started with him, he had a lot of ability, but he had worked with guys that didn't really let him do anything. And when he and I met, we were in Puerto Rico, and I said to him, he said, I just really want to, I want to do stuff, and no one's letting me do anything. I said, well, I'll let you do everything. And he is really, he's a rock star, and a great guy, and probably one of the best mates I've ever had, and it really makes me feel good. When I retire, a little piece of me will be out here. I know that those that have watched the channel for a long time know that I always talk about my Portuguese captain that taught me everything I knew. Well, maybe Luke and maybe a few other people will also think of me not as being Portuguese, but of the guy that might have taught them something. And if I've taught you anything, you can help me out by subscribing. Only 22% of you guys that watch these videos are subscribed, and subscribing really helps me out a lot. You can like the video. That helps to get it out to more people. That's really cool. You can throw down super thanks and buy me and Luke a beverage at the airport. That's always appreciated. Or you can join one of the legends. Go over and put a link in below to join our Patreon crew. And for a couple bucks a month, patrons support the channel. They get direct access, and they get ad-free content. And early, they get it. The videos you see on Tuesday, they've already been watching since Saturday, so that's kind of cool. But another way you could help out, too, is help me out on my other channel, SV Paquita. I know you guys are watching this because you like tugboats, but my other channel it's not really a sailing channel. If you look at these sailing channels, there's a lot of babes in bikinis and that sort of stuff, and I like to think of mine as more of a mariner who spent his life at sea but is learning how to sail. I say learning how to sail, but we've put many thousands, almost 12,000 miles, almost, 10,000 miles underneath the keel of our boat right now. We're getting ready to sail it down from New England down to Florida and then out to the Bahamas for the winter. So come along with us over there. I'll put a link in the description. You guys, thank you so much for watching. Take care. Be safe. And as always, I'll see you on the one. And I'm just going to let this play out for a little for those that want to see it. Some people say, oh, why do you shut it off? I'd like to see it more. So anyway, that's that. You guys take care. Be safe. And I'll see you on the one.